Welcome to Vintage Noise. Today, we're looking at a car that, well, it didn't just become a flagship model. It really laid the groundwork for the modern luxury sedan as we know it. We're talking about the Mercedes-Benz W116 series, built between 1972 and 1980.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone interested in car history, the W116 is, it's where the S-Class story officially kicks off. Mercedes had luxury cars before, obviously, but these were the first ones actually badged Sonderklasse.
Sonderklasse, meaning special class. So they were really formalizing it here.
Exactly. It was a statement, a commitment to being at the absolute top tier.
And that commitment seemed to get noticed pretty quickly. I mean, it came out late 72, but the 450 SE won European Car of the Year in 74. That's pretty impressive for a big, heavy luxury car back then, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely. A huge achievement against, smaller, nimbler European cars. So what we want to do today is kind of walk you through how the W116 earned that reputation. We'll look at the design, the safety stuff, which was just revolutionary, and the engines. Some really interesting stories there with the performance models and the diesel.
Right. You'll really see why this car is considered so foundational by the end of this.
Okay, so first up, the look of the thing. If you put it next to the car it replaced, the W108, the difference is, well, it's night and day almost.
Yeah, development started way back in 66, apparently. So they were thinking about this radical change for a long time. It wasn't just a facelift.
Not at all. This was the brand new corporate styling theme, as they called it. Much more substantial, maybe a bit more assertive looking, but still recognizably Mercedes-Benz. And that basic style, the shape, the headlights, the grille, it really set the tone for Mercedes design for, what, almost 20 years?
Right up until the 190 stopped production in the early 90s, yeah. It defined that era of Mercedes luxury.
And the designer, this is a nice bit of history, it was Friedrich Geiger's last project for Mercedes.
Wow. The guy who started with the 500K back in the 30s.
The very same. Quite a career arc, ending with the W116 in 1969 when the design was finalized.
Incredible. And even in the details, you see that thoughtfulness, like those ridges on the taillight lenses.
Yes. They weren't just for show, were they?
No, not at all. Purely practical. They were designed to channel airflow in a way that kept dirt from building up on the lights.
Simple, but really clever. Keeps the lights visible, which is crucial for safety. And Mercedes kept doing that for ages, didn't they?
Yeah, well into the 2000s. It's one of those little signature details. Okay, so underneath that new body, what was the basic engineering like?
Pretty solid foundations. Independent suspension all around, and disc brakes on all four wheels. That was standard across the entire W116 range, even the base models. That gave it that characteristic smooth ride and, really good stopping power for the time.
Okay, so a strong chassis. But I think when people talk about the W116, the safety innovations are often the first thing mentioned, especially one big one.
You're thinking ABS, right?
Exactly. Anti-lock brakes.
Yeah, this is the headline feature, no doubt. The W116 was the very first production car you could buy with an electronic four-wheel multi-channel anti-lock braking system. It was developed with Bosch, became an option from 1978 onwards.
It's just standard now. You don't even think about it. But back then, how much of a difference did ABS actually make for the driver?
Oh, it was revolutionary, life-saving, potentially. Before ABS, if you stomped on the brakes in an emergency, especially on a wet or slippery road, the wheels would lock up. And when your wheels lock, you lose steering control. You just skid.
Right. You're just along for the ride at that point.
Exactly. With ABS, the system senses lockup and rapidly pulses the brakes, like hundreds of times a second. It stops the lockup, so you can actually still steer the car while braking hard. Plus, it often shortens stopping distances, too. It moved safety from just being about crashing well to actively preventing the crash or at least maintaining control.
A huge leap. But they didn't neglect the crashing well part either, did they? The structure was also a major focus.
Absolutely. It was a whole package. They talked about the security passenger cell. They used a much stiffer roof frame, stronger pillars for the doors and reinforced zones. And of course, they really advanced the idea of crumple zones, deformation zones at the front and rear, designed to absorb impact energy before it reached the passengers.
And inside, too, lots of passive safety features. Padded dash, controls that would deform on impact, that big four-spoke steering wheel with an impact absorber. But you mentioned something about the fuel tank placement earlier that sounded interesting.
Ah, yes. That's a really key detail, often overlooked. Traditionally, fuel tanks are often stuck right at the very back end of the car.
Which seems like not the best place in a rear-end collision.
Precisely. It's the most vulnerable spot for rupture and fire. So Mercedes moved the W116's fuel tank to a position above the rear axle, sort of nestled within the car's main structure.
Ah, giving it more protection.
Exactly. It put a significant amount of the car's structure between the tank and a potential rear impact. A massive improvement in safety, especially in high-speed crashes. Shows real commitment to safety over just, packaging convenience.
Okay, so incredibly safe, incredibly well built. It sounds like the perfect platform to put a really powerful engine in. Let's talk about the big one. That's the 6.9.
Ah, yes. The legendary 450 SEL 6.9, built from 75 to 80. This was the absolute top dog, the successor to the earlier 300 SEL 6.3 Red Pig ancestor, a proper German muscle sedan, really. Low production volume, lots of hand finishing.
And the name, 6.9. But the engine wasn't quite 6.9 liters, was it?
And no, technically it was 6,834 cc, so 6.8 liters. But, 6.9 sounds better. Even rounded down, though, it was the largest engine fitted to any post-war Mercedes up to that point. And actually, the largest engine in any non-American production car at the time. Huge displacement.
But it wasn't just about the massive engine. The 6.9 had that special suspension too, didn't it? The hydraulic pneumatic system.
That's right. It came standard on the 6.9, self-leveling hydraulic pneumatic suspension. Now, Citroën was famous for this kind of tech, but theirs had a bit of a reputation for complexity and, well, issues.
So how did Mercedes approach it differently?
They engineered it for reliability, typically Mercedes. One key difference was the hydraulic pump. Instead of being driven by a potentially breakable rubber belt, Mercedes drove it directly off the engine's timing chain.
Okay, why is that significant?
Much more robust. The timing chain is fundamental to the engine running. It's built to last. Driving the pump this way made the hydraulic system inherently more reliable. Plus, they included hard rubber dampers that could act as a sort of emergency backup if the hydraulics failed completely, so the car wouldn't just collapse.
Right, unlike the Citroëns, which would famously sink down when parked.
Exactly. The Mercedes system was designed not to sink when the engine was off. It maintained its ride height, preserving that luxury car image. Always ready to go. That self-leveling hydraulic pneumatic setup was also optional on other 450 SELs outside North America from 77, by the way.
Interesting. Okay, so the 6.9 was the ultimate expression, but you mentioned North America. Things were a bit different over there, weren't they?
Yeah, the U.S. market in the 70s presented some real challenges. Stricter federal safety rules were one thing, but the big one was emissions regulations. These regs really started to bite into engine performance, especially for the V8s.
How bad did it get for the W116?
Well, take the standard 4.5-liter V8 in the 450 SE and SEL. The U.S. version started around 192 horsepower in 73. By the final model year, 1980, it was down to just 162 horsepower. Meanwhile, the European version of the same engine kept making a healthy 225 horsepower right through. That's a massive difference.
Wow. And that performance drop created another problem, didn't it? Something to do with fuel economy rules.
Exactly. CAFE corporate average fuel economy standards. These rules didn't just look at one model. Manufacturers had to meet an average fuel economy target across all the cars they sold in the U.S. each year. Selling lots of big, thirsty V8s, even detuned ones, really dragged down your average.
So Mercedes needed something efficient to balance things out.
Precisely. They needed a fuel sipper, but one that still fit the Mercedes image. And their solution was ingenious and exclusive to the U.S. and Canada. In 1978, they launched the 300 SD turbo diesel.
The first turbo diesel passenger car.
The world's first, yes. A 3.0-liter, 5-cylinder diesel engine with a turbocharger. The technology was partly developed from their C111 experimental sports car program.
And how did it sell?
It was a smash hit, became a bestseller for Mercedes in North America. People loved the fuel economy, the durability, and it still felt like a proper Mercedes. Crucially, its high MPG figures significantly boosted Mercedes' overall CAFE score. It basically allowed them to keep selling the desirable, albeit less powerful, V8 models without facing huge penalties.
So the regulations actually spurred innovation in this case.
Absolutely. It forced their hand, and the result was a whole new market segment. The luxury turbo diesel sedan. Mercedes kept offering diesel S-classes specifically for North America and Japan right up until the early 90s because of the W116's success.
That's fascinating. Just quickly, for anyone looking at buying one of these today, there was an engine tech change midway through, wasn't there? with the fuel injection.
Ah, good point. Yes, in 1975, primarily to meet European emission standards, the V8 engines switched fuel injection systems. They went from the early Bosch Digitronic, which was electronic and computer-controlled cutting edge for the time, but now known to be potentially troublesome after decades.
Right, the old electronics can be flaky.
Very much so. They switched to the Bosch Cagetronic system. This was a mechanical fuel injection system, much less complex electronically, much more robust, and generally considered far more reliable and easier to maintain today. So a later V8 W116 often means Cagetronic, which is usually preferred by enthusiasts for long-term ownership.
Good tip. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The W116, quite a car.
Definitely. It cemented the S-Class name, it brought ABS to the masses, or at least made it available in a production car for the first time, and it pioneered the luxury turbo diesel in a key market.
An innovation lab on wheels, as you said earlier.
Pretty much, and it sold well too. Total production was 473,035 units before the next generation, the W126, arrived in 79 and 80. It really proved that you could blend luxury, performance, and groundbreaking safety tech seamlessly.
Yeah. And thinking about that safety tech, the W116 introduced ABS, which went from being a luxury option to something legally required on every car. It became indispensable. So here's a thought to leave you with. Looking at today's cars, with all the tech we have, advanced driver assistance, connectivity, electrification, what feature that we currently see as a luxury or an option do you think will become the W116's equivalent in 50 years? What technology that's emerging now will eventually be seen as absolutely essential, not just a nice to have, something beyond just luxury?
That's a really interesting question to ponder. Maybe something related to vehicle-to-everything communication, or perhaps truly advanced autonomous capability.
Maybe. Something for you all to think about next time you see a cutting-edge feature on a new car. Thanks for joining us for this look at the Mercedes-Benz W116 here on the Vintage Noise channel.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.